So one of the biggest things that I see as a coach and as a practitioner watching other practitioners is people who aren't rotating backwards as efficiently as they can. And one of the biggest mistakes comes from the way that people are tucking. A lot of people think that tucking is tucking. It doesn't matter how you do it, it makes you rotate. But tucking your knees to your chest is not what makes you flip over. If you jump straight up in the air and just tuck your knees into your chest, you're not going to do a backflip. At the end of the day, no matter what shape you're flipping over in, what makes you flip is your hips flipping over your head. You don't start rotating until your hips are rising over your head. And so the best way to rotate backwards is the way that most efficiently pushes your hips over your head. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you two back tucks that are pretty similar. I jumped exactly the same for both, so there's really no difference in height. But I want you to notice the difference in how high the rotation happens and when the rotation finishes. And then what I'll do is I'll show you on the ground the difference between those two back tucks, what I was doing with my legs and hips as I tucked. So to watch this first one, this first back tuck, it works, it's successful, but this one, I'm pulling my knees just straight into my chest. That's what I'm trying to do, right? So it works, it's a pretty decent back tuck, but let's watch this next one. So what I want you to see about that one is pay attention here. Watch how high my hips go and when the rotation finishes. The rotation is done a lot higher, and therefore I can open earlier out of it. I didn't go any higher in the second flip. I just flipped faster and more efficiently, so the rotation happened sooner and at the top of the jump rather than as I was falling down. So now I want you to watch these two different methods of tucking. I'm going to be laying on my back on the ground, and I want you to pay attention to what the difference is between them in how my hips are moving. So this first one, I'm pulling my knees into my chest. This is what a lot of people do. They're tucking, they pull their knees into their chest. It works, right? But I want you to pay attention to how long it takes for my hips to start rising, right? And how much they rise. As you'll see, my hips don't start rising until my knees are almost all the way into my chest, and then my hips only rise about like a foot off the ground, right? Not great. It rotates, it's flipping over, but it's not flipping over very efficiently, right? So let's look at this next one. What you'll see about this next one is rather than pulling my knees to my chest, I'm thinking about trying to use my lower abs to pull my hips over my head. And I want you to notice how much sooner my hips start rising and how much higher they end up rising, right? There was no difference in how much energy I put into both of those. The only difference was the direction in which I pushed my hips. In one of them, I was thinking about getting my knees into my chest. In the other one, I was thinking about pushing my hips over my head, right? And so the difference between the two back tucks you saw was that exact same thing. In one of them, I was thinking about pulling my knees in. In the second one, the one that rotated quicker, I was thinking about curling my hips over my head. One of my favorite things to do to practice this is go on a trampoline so you don't have to worry about how high you're jumping, and try to do a back tuck where you're staring down at the trampoline the whole time. What that does is it makes it so you can't set properly. You can't fully extend your hips as you set. So the rotation has to come a lot more from you pulling your hips over your head, right? A lot of us get away with not so great tucks because we set and we push our hips forward and we push our chest back, and that gets our body flipping. So pretty much no matter what you do, you're gonna flip over, right? But what a tuck should do is it should increase your rotation speed. It shouldn't just work with what you already got, right? So what you're gonna practice doing is staring at the ground while you do a back tuck and really focusing on curling your hips under and pulling them over your head, right? The way I describe it sometimes is like trying to put your butt on your face, right? It's a very specific motion. It sounds funny, but lay on your back on the ground and try, and you'll see what I'm talking about, right? The other way you can think about it is when you set, lift your hands above your head, and then think about taking your shins, like the surface of your shins, and putting it onto your hands rather than bringing your hands down to your shins. Both of those help accomplish that hip lift motion. And if you practice this and you get really good at rotating, and then you take it to a better back tuck, so you do a back tuck with a good set and also an efficient tuck, you end up with a much improved back tuck. And this doesn't just apply to back tucks. Once you figure out this concept, you can apply it to every backwards flipping skill, whether it's a Cody, castaway, swing cast, it doesn't matter. Once you set whatever skill you've done, pulling your hips over in that way when you're tucking will increase your rotation speed. So give that a try next time you're training in the gym. Practice it a bunch of times and then try to apply it to all your skills, and let me know if it helps.